and it's kind of like a networking thing, but also to get to know the community that's around us and be part of them. Kind of had a little fart in my brain because I was so focused on helping her,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this would have been such a great opportunity for me to push my business across. So, right.
You got it. You got to be careful, brother. This is what I've found over the years is it's hard to do to sell, or what I call tell, rather than sell, but use the word tell, two stories at one time, right? Because you're in your wife's story, right?
Right.
You got that hat on. And I've had to really watch myself over the years, and I've really gotten good at it. We're like right now, you and I are talking about this. We're not talking about NFL football, right?
Right.
But it's really confusing when you start to talk about two separate things. It confuses the people you're talking to.
Yeah,
so did you end up doing it?
I was focused on getting her business out there. And it was only after the fact that I was like, man, there were
I'll tell you what I do, Daniel. It's dirtier than hell, but it works like a son of a gun. Everyone's in there. You slip away with 50, 100 flyers, and you stick them under their windshield wipers.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I used to do in Portland. Stacy would just look them up on Mondays. My lead assistant, would look around the Portland metropolitan area, which is a big area. Oregon, Portland, Oregon, its surrounding areas. You got 30 miles west, you got 60 to 70 miles east, you got at least 35 to 40 miles south, and I go all the way up to Battleground and Vancouver, Washington. You got 30 to 40 miles north. It's a huge area. And what she would do is she would look for business conferences or realtor conferences, mortgage conferences, anywhere where you're going to have someone who's a self-employed or a 1099 individual. And then I would bump over there quick at 2:30 in the afternoon and put flyers on their windows with 4 or 5 guys.
Right.
And you got all those, like, I can remember there were like 5,500 realtors that came into Seattle, Washington, flew from all over the country. Some of them from Canada and northern Mexico. But anyway, long story short, my God, there were like 6 of us, and we handed out flyers for like 4.5 hours. It was a riot. God, we killed it. Those were on mortgage loans, but I can tell you right now, it works a lot better with business loans. It definitely does.
Yeah, there were just so many businesses out there. It was a great weekend. We got some great exposure for my wife, and I got to meet the proprietors for the Pinecrest Business Association.
Cool.
So I'm going to be hosting a meeting with them today, telling them about my business because I obviously didn't get a chance to do it then. But it was such great exposure, and we met so many great people. It was just a great weekend overall.
Good for you, man. Good for you. Right on. Good for your wife, too. You know what, dude? What I found with men, they don't support their wives enough. And what I found with women, they don't support their husbands enough. I'm not kidding you, man. That's one of the greatest things I've got going for me in my life. It's in the other room is a woman getting ready to go. She's ambitious. She's driven. She's self-employed in 2 areas. And I love to push on her, and she loved to push on me. It's a great feeling to have a partner that's really supportive. That's pretty cool up there.
It really is. The support that I've had from her and the support that I've given her, we are just such a great team. And I'm blessed in my life to have her with me. And
I'm surprised at how many men are in competition with their woman, or how many women are in competition with their men, or partners are in competition with partners. Or get this, I saw a guy here. I was at Diamond Lake yesterday about midday. This guy grabbed this kid's arm. He was about 13 years old, and you could see that this kid had been in this situation for many years with his dad. He assumed the position. Now, you know what that position is. He's cowering, right? And so his dad does what he does, which is in front of all of us, sunny out, makes a scene, and he's all proud of himself with his chest pumped up. But the kid is one more notch down the rung, right? It's going to take him years to bounce back from this, if ever. I mean, we got a future serial killer, a future axe murderer, someone like myself who hasn't seen a therapist for 42 years. to get his way out of this crap, right? So I went over at his beach towel. He's getting ready, and I sat down by him, and I just started talking to him. And pretty soon he was like, there he is. Good morning, Russell. Top of the morning. Top of the morning to Mount Rushmore, too. Wow, very cool, dude. I love that background. But yeah, anyway, you might mute him, Darius. You might mute Russell.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because
You gotta go back then. Yeah.
I won't.
But anyway,
there we go.
so I sat down next to the guy and I started talking to him. Pretty soon the guy's looking at me and goes, my God, somehow you just chewed me out. I'm twice as big as you and I'm not going to beat the shit out of you. He goes, I actually feel like I'm beating the shit out of myself right now. I go, brother, this is how I found out about it was there I was in the psychotherapist chair. And I started to realize, you know, it's me that had done a poor job of managing my children. It wasn't the child that had done a poor job of managing themselves, you know. And the next thing I know, it just changed for me. It was just like, no more am I going to thunder down on my kids. What I would do is just grab a knee so I could look them in the eye. And what's interesting about a child, they're like a dog. You try to get them to look you in the eye, they won't look you in the eye. And it probably took at least 15, 20, 30, 40 sessions with Grant and Travis, our two children, before they finally had the faith that they could look in my eye and I could look in their eye and it wasn't contentious. And man, I mean, what a change it was for our family that dad wasn't this thundering, authoritative figure, you know. And I'm telling you, it's something that's been just drilled into my head. And again, it goes back to what you and I are talking about, Daniel, is we don't get enough support out of our friends, our family, our loved ones. But that being said, we don't give enough. I always look at us like we're a parking meter or a gas or a diesel tank, and we're running around oftentimes like we're on empty, when in all honesty, we're not on empty at all. It's just a mindset. And so what do we want when we're on empty? We want to be filled, whether it be food, you know, whether it be something spiritual, physiological, mental. We want to be filled. That's why they call it fulfilled. And so the value you've added to your relationship with this other person, dude, it can't be measured. It just can't.
I agree. My father always raised me to you know, you get what you give. That's what my father always told me.
You gotta give. You gotta
treat
give
others the way you want to be treated, and so shall your life be fulfilled. And Brett, I've listened to a lot of your speeches and speakings and all of your videos, and it's true. It all takes, you know, persistence and dedication. You got to be in there to win it. When things go wrong, you just got to keep pushing forward. I went out and I made, I think, 11 posters to put by the side of the road. 9 of them got taken down, but hey, I got 3 that are still up, so it's a win. They got taken down within like a day, and I look for them.
I got better at. So you come up to a stop street. Let's say it's a 4-way, and your stop sign is on the right, right? But oftentimes out in the middle on your left is one of those islands. And see, they can't get out and take your sign there. So I'd put it out on the island. And no one was putting those signs out on the island. They were all putting them on the telephone poles, right by the stop sign. I'd put them out in the islands. And it worked, but they were able to stay out there a hell of a lot longer. Hey,
Yeah,
I got
I
those.
went to the banks. So I researched banks that are giving out business loans, because not all the banks around our area are doing business loans. So I went to their parking lots and I put them up. Like I said, I got 3 that are still up, and all the other ones got taken down within a day or two. So, but it is what it is.
We got a guy who has about 45 U.S. banks throughout the country. And what that dirty dog does is him and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. He puts his sign right at the exit of the bank. You got it. You know what I'm talking about. And it says, Was your loan turned down? Question mark. Call me if you need a business loan, and his phone number down at the bottom. And he just kills it. And then once he gets that loan for US Bank, he goes into US Bank and explains to them that he was able to get so-and-so a loan that he was turned down, and then he ends up landing that branch. He's very good at it. Talk about dedicated.
Three of the banks asked me not to come back anymore, which was heart wrenching.
Dedicated. Him and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. What you were talking about, you used the D word. It wasn't dedicated. Oh, for God's sakes!
Persistence. Persistence.
No, it was a D. It was a D, not dedicated. Discipline. Thank you. This is the thing I've found with me, you guys, and I've found this with almost 300,000 people now that I've been around this type of an industry, is how we are so hard on ourselves if for some reason we don't amount to what we set out to that day or that week. And I can tell you that can really throw you into a turmoil. You got to really be careful. You know, discipline is an interesting thing. I think that when we think about the word discipline, we actually contain it with too much parentheses and make it like, okay, I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm going to stop using heroin, or I'm going to stop looking at porn, or I'm going to stop taking time off. I'm going to go 12 hours today on the telephone and telemarket. That type of discipline, I can tell you, no matter what anyone tells you, will lead to disaster every time. And that's your problem when you watch these shows, like these shows called Intervention and this type of thing. You look at these moms and dads, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, brothers, sisters, friends, family members, employers, and you're like, you got to understand, when someone's an addict, if you could remove the word addict, when someone has a learned behavior, like sticking a needle in their arm, okay, they can't just all of a sudden stop. No one's all of a sudden going to just stop. It's very rare. I mean, that's why they have terms like the dry drunk, right? Oh, this guy's a dry drunk, this type of crap. You know, this is a dry addict. For me, what I found again and again is we go back. Why do we go back? Well, the reason I go back is because it's what I know. I mean, they always say that a murderer, these type of people will return to the scene of the crime. Well, that's what we end up doing. We return. And we return it's because it's what we know. But keep in mind, we never return as badly as it was. So it means we've gone out a little bit. It's kind of like taking a rubber band. They're really tight. You stretch it really far, and then you let it go back to its original position. It's never in the original position. It's always been stretched a little bit. That makes sense to you guys and gals? And so then what you do, you take the rubber band again, you stretch it more, and the next thing you know, that rubber band is getting wider and wider, a little bit at a time. And that's what the learning curve is all about from my perspective is you're learning something new, which most adults hate it. That's why they say, you know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Like bullshit. I know for a fact you can teach an old dog new tricks, but the old dog's got to be ready for the new tricks. Well, here's the problem with old people that I've found is they don't go in with so much blind ambition that a child does, a young adult does. You know, someone that's found something for the first time that they just love. They can't wait to be part of it. You just go in with this level of ambition that is unimaginable. In fact, it leads me to today's subject matter perfectly. Okay. A great example of this. I've been in 3 industries now that are 1099 industry, the stock brokerage industry, the mortgage industry, and this industry, with a span of over 40 years. During that time, I've seen somewhere in the neighborhood of about 512 to 516,000 people on my own platforms and Smith Parney's platform that have come into an industry like this. So as an example, every one of you, Teresa, when I look at you, I can say for a fact that when you found this, you were excited, right?
I sure was.
Sure you were. Now, here's the problem I found, Teresa, and the rest of you is we come in, we're excited. It's kind of like you find out in the 1800s that this gold rush is available. You head out with all these intentions. Let's say you've got a horse, you know, whatever it is you got. Let's use a horse environment. You got everything packed in the horse that you could possibly get in there, you know. Hidden among you somewhere is your quan, whether it's in your bra strap or in your sock or the sole of your shoe or wherever the hell you got. You got a little bit of money with you, a little bit of grub steak, whatever. And off you go. You're headed towards the Klondike Gold Rush or the California Gold Rush. Here's what I found. Most people arrive on a platform like this, and they think that because they found it, and all that endorphins and dopamine is released, that's the reward. That's the award. That is success. And it is. It is. But now what you've got to do is you got to say to yourself, okay, what am I going to do with this that I've found? And what I found is most people don't make it in a gold rush. Very few, as a matter of fact. In fact, you can look all over America and you can see what? Ghost towns. And what are the ghost towns typically around? They're around a gold rush. And did the gold really dry up? I mean, we see this again and again and again throughout America, more than anywhere in the world, where big companies will go into these old ghost towns and wake these mines up again. What happened? What is the phenomenon that took place? What happened was we listen to those that are yelling the loudest. And if we're not yelling in our head that this is great, I'm having a great time, this is working for me, pretty soon we start to look over there and say, well, shit, maybe it's better over there. And I started to develop this saying that most people that I meet, that I've met in the stock brokerage industry, the mortgage industry, this industry, the 1099 industry, are always looking, never finding. In fact, a great example of this, Darius, most recently, is the gentleman who sent you his phone number that you told me about on Saturday morning. Were you in agreement?
Yes.
He's gone. He's gone, is he not? How long was he with us, bro? Start to finish.
I'd have to look back exactly, but it was
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Let's call it a month, right?
Yeah.
Came in here like Teresa, came in here like Kevin, the rest of us. This is the most incredible thing on the face of the planet, right? Then what did he do? He proceeded to fuck it all up, didn't he? He fucked with every single solitary aspect of my system because he's the smartest guy in the room, right, Darius?
Right.
Did he not fuck with you?
Unfortunately, yeah.
You and I are just dummies. He's the smartest guy in the room. What he doesn't realize is he's here for a reason. And that's because it wasn't working out for him. For me personally, I can tell each of you this. I didn't come into this because everything was working out for me. I didn't come into the mortgage industry because everything was working out for me. I didn't come into the stock brokerage industry because everything was working out for me. It's kind of like a Tony Robbins, moment in time, Anthony Robbins moment in time here. You don't come in until you say, I'm not going to tolerate this over here anymore. I want something new. And you start looking. But what we have a tendency not to do is turn off that switch and say, I found it. And, we can go back to what the gentleman and I were talking about earlier, marriages. I'm a marriage counselor off and on, got a license for it. And I get involved in people's lives on this platform. I use it all the time. Get on the sidebar, start talking. And inevitably what I see is people that said, I can't wait to marry him. I can't wait to marry her. I can't wait to marry he, she, they. I can't wait. But then something happens. Well, what happens is we quit handing out cards. We quit giving each other flowers. We quit giving each other compliments, you know, and that's the saddest thing on the face of the planet for me. Again and again and again, I've seen this over the years where, you know, we're like a fart. There's all this smell and then it's gone. All this sound and then it's gone, you know, and what is wrong with us that we can't stay? Well, I know what's wrong with us that we can't stay is we're like crows. You watch a crow up in a tree and that bottle cap gets flipped out of the car, or a cigarette butt or a filbert nut or a walnut falls out of the tree and it bounces across the street. It lands on the yellow line, on the center line. Next thing you know, there's that crow. You got to fly down. Next thing you know, there's that squirrel. And the next thing you know, we've got what we've got. Roadkill. Roadkill. We chase shiny objects, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'll tell you what is wrong with it is once you reach the shiny object, what you're going to realize, same thing I realized, and you've realized this, all of you, you know you have, is there's never been a shiny object yet that fulfilled us forever. That fulfilled us forever. So you want to be real careful. So this is what I say, you know, here we are, Monday morning. Here we are another day. And what is the saying we hear again and again and again? You know, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. I mean, how many of you could take that saying and revamp it, reword it, but it's going to be exactly the same? Anyone know the saying? Go ahead, revamp it for me. How does it go? Anyone?
Oh, perdiendo I'm in the meeting right now. To do what?
You want to mute JG? Sounds to me like he's got a conference on another call there.
I thought he was about to ask his question. He had his hand raised.
Or answer it. Anyway, today is the first day of the rest of your life. So here's the deal. Look, listen to this for a second. When you're a baby, I looked this up today. All right. Give me a second here because I don't want to blow it. All right. When you and I are a baby. Okay. Does anyone know what is the film on the outside of the baby when it's born? What is it called?
Vernix.
There you go. I had to look it up this morning. I'd forgotten about it. Now, it forms in the womb during the third trimester and acts as a natural protective barrier, helping to moisturize the baby's skin, protect it against infections before and immediately after birth. In addition, it helps with the slimy nature of the birth needed for the birth itself. Well, imagine today, I'm 64 years old. I'm born. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. Yesterday is gone. Last week is gone. Last month, last year. The last 64 years are gone. I can't have them back. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. What if, Teresa, you were my mother and I just came out of the birthing canal and I was standing there and I looked like this? You'd be like, what in the hell is going on? Right? But metaphorically speaking, that's transpired, right?
Right.
I've gone through the birthing canal. I'm here again. And guess what? I'm full of all this knowledge. Well, you know, if you look into a lot of the Stoics, if you look into a lot of the scientists, there's a lot of Alan Watts type people out there that will say that when you and I were born, we knew a tremendous amount. But what happens to us, it's kind of like nature versus nurture with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is all of a sudden we're being nurtured by these people. And we have to what? We have to fall in line, right? And now for the next 15, 16, 17, 18 years, we've got to put up with this crap, which is a lot of crap. The crap we're getting from schools, the crap we're getting from our parents, a lot of stuff we don't want to be part of. There's not a child out there that wakes up from birth and says, I can't wait to be part of all this for the next 18 years. I mean, if we had our chances or we had our choice, we probably wouldn't do it, quite frankly, because it is a massive learning curve. Well, the beauty of this is we've all gone through this already. It's over. It's done. We know what we know, and we know what we don't know. Or do we? I mean, there's people who say we don't know what we don't know. So this morning I'm listening to that saying again and again, we don't know what we don't know. And of all things on the face of the planet, I'm reminded as I'm looking through Instagram for a little bit of inspiration here for myself and you guys and gals, but really for me, was I found that airport saying, and I hadn't seen this saying in probably 30 years or more. The thing about an airport, if you look at it, is we're all funneled into the planes that we're going to get on. And make no mistake about it, you and I are watching our watch. We're watching the clock. We start to watch it before we leave the house, wherever we're at, our apartment, our house, our townhome. We got to get to the airport on time. We got to get to the airport on time. You know, we get there. We got to get on the plane on time. Let's go. Let's go. Finish your drink. You know, finish your food. Let's go. Let's go. We're pushing each other. You know, by the time we get there, hell, we're frantic, right? One thing we know is that plane is going to leave. And what I've found with most people is they refuse to live their life that way. In fact, I had a really good discussion with some gentlemen, 4 of them, that have some issues with their company right now in Utah, and they can't get it over the next hump. Now, the guy in charge is worth about 60 million bucks. Just sold his company, netted a little over 58 million, had a couple more million in the bank. 31 years he was in business. And what I did was I unwound his timeline. Every aspect of his business in that final 10 to 15 years was disciplined down to meetings, down to the food they kept in the refrigerator, down to the HR department. Everything was disciplined. Everything was accomplished. Everything ran as smooth as it could be. There was no need for change. Everybody was in a maintenance mode. And I explained to John, I said, you got to understand, you were never in a maintenance mode until you became that at a later date. Go back to your beginning days when I met you in this gigantic warehouse. You had nothing and you were full of ambition and you didn't have timelines. You went wholeheartedly into stuff blind and you had no problem at all adjusting at a later date along the way. And he started laughing and he said, you know what, Brett? I've become stuck in place. I said, absolutely, brother. You've got to be a tree that is malleable. Because when that wind starts to blow, if you're not malleable, if you're rigid, the wind will just crack that tree in half, no problem. And your unwillingness, your inability, because of your unwillingness to be able to bob and weave right now are what are really hurting you. And I could tell you all something. This is not fun, finding your stride. It's not. For a lot of people. I mean, I just got done telling Jarius, you know, us Sagittarius people, we just went through a blue moon. This is a really incredible period for us right now. Those of you that don't believe in that crap, I don't blame you. I didn't believe in that crap for years, all right? But I can tell you this right now. There are certain people out there, like my youngest son, who's a Taurus, the bull, and Grant won't change. Grant won't adapt. He won't modify. He won't alter until it's already done. There's times when Grant was little where I had to stop him and say, son, it's over. You know, you and understand, folks, whether you take action or don't take action, you've taken action. Everyone agree?
Yes.
You've taken action. And that's the way the Taurus will work every time. They back into everything. They come into it kicking and screaming. You got to grab a hold of them and pull them, and they're pulling back. Where I'm a Sagittarius, I'm adventurous. Let's go. I mean, your picture around Mount Rushmore there that looks more like Hawaii to me, a Hawaiian inlet. Brother, I want to be there right now. By God, just lay the blanket out, spread the band de soleil on my big fat belly, and let's get some sun. I'm there. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Let's
go.
get on the plane and let's roll. You know, I mean it, Teresa. I don't even care if I have food. We'll find food when we get there.
That's
You know,
right.
but I can tell you, in the other room is a Libra, and she's balancing the scales. Now, look, got to tell you about a little sketchy part of my life. There's a time when I dealt marijuana back in high school and after high school, and we used scales, and these just weren't any scales. These were the real deal. These are scales that cost me at the time $15,000, because when you were in front of me, you wanted to make sure that your gram was a gram. So if you understand the quality scale, what does a quality scale need all the time? Anyone?
Balance.
That's
Counterbalance.
right. Balance.
Calibration.
Adjustment. You're
Calibration.
adjusting the scale all the time. And I've explained this to my wife again and again and again, and she's really starting to get it. It's like when you and I are trying to balance, when you and I are trying to adjust, what you have to understand is it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. In fact, on my phone, God is my witness. You can see it right here on the screen. Underneath, right here, it's written on my screen. What does it say? The thing that stops you and I from taking action is that you and I tell ourselves that we only have one shot and it has to be perfect. This is a reminder that your repetition and practice always makes you better at your craft. Keep creating. Well, along those lines, I could tell you that's that get on the plane moment. You get on that plane. That plane is leaving. So you did that. You came on this platform and you said, by God, I'm getting on the plane, and you came into the industry. But understand, once you get in the industry, you've got to do something in the industry. Even though the endorphins and the dopamine is there, and it's a high, and you're like, oh my God, I found it. Hey, look, at the end of the day, you realize that my shit stinks too. Okay, pretty soon you look at me and you're like, you know what? I've listened to this clown enough. And what he's talking about, he's starting to repeat himself, and it's starting to sound like blah, 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 blah. I know that, and you know that. I got to tell you something. If I hear Tony Robbins one more time, I'm just going to take my gun here, stick it in my mouth, and blow the back of my head off. I know Tony Robbins' message inside now. But what does Tony do? What Tony does is what the great ones do, what Bob Proctor used to do. You know, we can go on and on and on with these people. They mix it up and they make it sound like it's the first time you've ever heard it. Or what it does is it resonates with what you've heard before. And it's at those connections that we say to ourselves, there's value here. And I can tell you all this. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I am someone who coaches people constantly on the fact that you already know it all. You were born in today knowing what you know, and you know a boatload. You know what to do, you know what not to do. Our problem is, again and again and again, for whatever reason, we end up going back to who we are, who we were before we went through that birthing canal. And now here we are today. So today is another chance for us to enact what we want to be part of. It really is, for all intents and purposes, a Shakespearean play. And the question is, are you going to be the producer, the actor, the director, you know, off stage doing the lighting? What part are you going to play in your play today? And for me personally, I know this. There's times where I need to be the director. There's times I need to be the producer. There's times I need to rewrite the screenplay. There's nothing wrong with any aspect of that at all. What's wrong with us is we have a propensity to feel like we're missing out, to feel like maybe we didn't do what we set out to do. Look, Carolyn Myss in 1984 started touting this to me. MYSS, if you want to look her up, Carolyn Myss. And she's a mystic, she's a healer, and she's abnormal. She's a weirdo. like me. She is off the charts weird. But what she was talking about with me and others in this meeting, I'll never forget. And it's in regards to you and I being in a situation where we're not where we want to be. But what you need to understand is you're never going to be where you want to be. That's why so often you see people win the lottery and we got over 98% of them are broke within 2 years. Okay? You're really never going to be where you want to be. But there's this thing that says to us inside of us again and again, if I had this, then I'd be where I want to be. I get this RV, everything would be great. You know, I get this house, everything would be great. I get this gal, I get this guy, everything would be great. I get this job, everything would be great. But think of how many times, go back in your life, Mike Weaver's dad, again and again and again, when I was a little kid, he would make these comments to me, you know, Brett, if I offered you $1 million for you to cut your little finger off, would you take the money? And I remember thinking again and again, like, what is this guy talking about, for Christ's sake? You know, he was always fucking with my head in that manner. And he really was an asshole, quite frankly. But at the same time, I look back and I think to myself, there was some credibility to what he was talking about. What would you give up? What would you give up? Well, me personally, I started to realize now more than ever, I would never give up the things I've learned for the money I've had, the money I had or have. I can tell you that's easy to say. We hear it all the time. I see it out there and hear it all the time. Where you talk, you know, someone like a Mark Cuban is out there and he's so relaxed and he's like, you know, I would never start a business on a business loan. Shit. Give me the business loan. If I had a business idea, I'd take that business loan in a second. In fact, Darius, you and I know someone who got approved for a massive amount with us and chose not to take the money, right? Not uncommon, is it? You want to know why they don't take the money, folks? Fear. Fear. But I got to tell you something. How dare you fill out an application, then get what you want, and then pass it up? What in the fuck is going on? Well, we live in a world where we're constantly questioning ourselves. And what you got to understand is when you've been called, make no mistake about it, you ain't the only one called. Now, if we're talking about the divine here, if we're talking about God here, and you've been called, Jeff Draw, don't think for one moment that this clown in charge, or these clowns plural in charge, have only called on you or only called on me. They need that out there. So a great example is 1959, I think is when it was, okay? Don't quote me, you can look it up. The hula hoop was invented. But the bigger part of the story is this. On 9 separate continents, the patent was applied for in less than 12 months. No media, no Instagram, TVs weren't worth a shit. The bottom line is these ideas are not original. They're being handed out to all of us, a tremendous amount of us. In fact, if you don't believe me, you look up the 100 monkey syndrome or the 100 monkey theory. It's one of the greatest stories you'll ever hear in your life. Bob Proctor tells it the best. And I'll beat it up here, but it'll make sense to you, okay? So you got these 100 monkeys. Teresa, you got 20. You're a scientist. Shirley's got 20. Darius has 20. Charles has 20 and Mateo has 20. We got 100 total monkeys. Each of you have 20. You're a scientist. It's 1940. You're all on these islands or these bodies separate from one another. And for one full year, you're told by NASA, I want you to keep track of every single solitary thing that your monkeys do. What time they eat, what time they drink, individually and in group form, what time they crap, you know, when they go to sleep, everything. When they yawn, I want every visual, emotional, spiritual aspect of these monkeys' lives. recorded. So some years later, they're handing out the Nobel Prize to these scientists in Chicago. This meeting is over, and of all things, the scientists meet each other for the first time. They're sitting around the table, and at some point, one of the guys reaches over to in the center is a big bowl of fruit, reaches over to the fruit, picks up the fruit, and starts to wipe it off. Because as we know, on the outside of the fruit is people's handprints and oftentimes wax and that other dirty stuff that's out there in the warehouses. So he's wiping it off. And one of the guys, scientist, looks at him and says, "You remind me of my monkeys." And it was like an E.F. Hutton commercial. Everyone turned and looked at him. Everybody knew what they knew, because the one observation that they saw that was identical was, for whatever reason, at some point under their management with those monkeys that year, the monkeys started to clean their fruit. So they went back and they looked at their records, and what they found was the one guy who happened to be walking along the beach right at the edge of the grass each morning had a papaya tree, or a papaya type tree, that was on in the grass, but the branches hung out over onto the beach on one side. And when those papaya-like fruit would fall onto the damp sand, the monkeys would pick it up, they'd wipe that sand off. But interestingly enough, in less than 24 hours, all 100 of those monkeys, 80 of which were on separate continents, were wiping off their fruit. Ideas are that way. They are. And you're not given an idea because you're some original. I've learned this more and more again. In fact, one of the things you'll never see me do with my ideas is patent them or trademark them, which lawyers will tell you I'm crazy. Many of you will tell me I'm crazy. These multi-million or billion-dollar ideas, you got to patent them. You got to trade. No, you got to get to market. Because one thing you got to understand about patents and trademarks is this: they ain't no good if someone else wants them. I mean, what does China do with our ideas every day, folks? They steal them from us. What is Trump trying to do? He's trying to get rid of it. You know, I don't care whether you hate Trump or not. This is the first president that's ever said you're gonna quit taking our ideas. Again and again and again, he's bitched and moaned about it. We may never get there, but one thing's for certain: more and more and more of us are buying American, more than we ever have. We're not buying as much Chinese stuff because of it. Because we realize at the end of the day, this stuff is shit. It's made out of plastics and metals. I mean, our steel compared to their steel, you do not want to build a bridge out of the Chinese steel, folks. American steel is that much better. You know, I laughed the other day. I'm having this talk with this guy. I don't have one here. And I'm showing him these bottles from Costco. And him and I are at Costco, and he's got like 5,000 plastic water bottles in the back of his rig. He's going to drive down to San Diego, California with these things. North of San Diego, in between San Diego and Redding. And I said to him, I go, "Brother, you're going to want to cover those up. My God, it's going to get 90 degrees today. And that water inside those bottles is going to get, that condensation going to start in there. That plastic is going to start to leach off in those bottles more than it already has. And you're going to get it inside you." What do we call that, Darius? In the boobs.
Leaping.
No, what's with the G? I asked you about it because I've got it on my right breast. Gyno.
Oh, gynecomastia.
And so that's what happened to me. I go into the doctor about 25 years ago, and I'm talking to this kid about Darius's age, in his 40s. And he says, "The reason your boob is hurting and the reason your right boob is bigger than your left boob is because the plastics in whatever bottle you're using to drink out of are leaching into your system and causing," again, Darius?
Gynecomastia.
Say it again.
Gynecomastia.
So I did the research on this. And what I found is you can go back, and where they found it was Afghanistan, in the tents where Coca-Cola and Pepsi was bringing in their products in plastic containers for the first time as opposed to aluminum. And they were hitting 115, 120, 125 degrees in these tents. And then these women would put them in the refrigerator, cool them down. And all these men and women were ending up with these breasts that were having issues from the leaching plastics. Now, what does it say on the bottles now? Blank, blank, free. What is the acronym, the abbreviation? Anyone?
Yeah.
BPA free. Okay, BPA free. So I'm telling this guy, next thing you know, he's on, because we all get our phones out. His wife and him, daughter 18, is like, I told you, Dad, you weren't listening. And he goes to return all those bottles. Because you know that's the cheapest plastic on the face of the planet. You hear it, those water bottles, they actually crumple. You can hear them crumple and creak. I mean, that water isn't even water. In fact, interestingly enough, it will deplete your electrolytes. Darius, you would know more about this than me. It's just flushing your system of your nutrients, right? That's all it's doing. Well, I can tell you, folks, when I come into this birthing canal today, I don't feel like I'm malnourished. I don't feel like I'm lacking nutrients. I feel filled. I feel ready to go. Now, what happens to me is no different than anyone else. I start to load up my wheelbarrow. I start to load up my backpack. And we weigh it down with yesterday. We weigh it down with last week. We weigh it down with last month. We weigh it down with last year. We weigh it down with the last 10 years, the last 15 years, the 20 years. Pretty soon by 10 a.m., 8:30 a.m., noon, we're the byproduct of the past. And I can tell you that the people I meet that are the most successful are the ones who, if anything, just use the past for educational purposes, and that's it. That's it. As opposed to something that weighs them down. So ask yourself if you're in an environment where your past is weighing you down. And if that's the case, understand today is the first day of the rest of your life. Yesterday is gone. And what do they say? Tomorrow's a dream. Tomorrow's a hope. You know, we could come up with a million different
promise.
There it is. You've got today. And so what you want to do from my perspective is you want to do a little bit towards each thing that matters to you. Like as a great example, Teresa, if you and I were married, I'm in a traditional married mind environment, man, woman, right?
Mhm.
If you and I were married, I would do something special for you. Like go out and start your car if it were cold and turn on the heat, turn on your heated seat. That little thing. And really, it is a Denzel Washington environment where it's the little things.
Always.
It's only the little, that's all it is. A peck on the cheek, you know. A great example, Jerry Ross with Marilyn Ross, my dad's hunting partner, still alive. And I got a call from Marilyn the other day. She's like, you would not believe this. Jerry gave me a 60th wedding anniversary ring. I mean, the man's never bought her a ring ever. The wedding ring was back in the day when you used to take the beer can and you'd snap it off and you'd have that ring in your hand. That's what it was. Oh, I have a hand coming in the door. I'm getting delivered tea. See, there it is.
The little things.
Yeah, that's my wife. The
I
special.
love it.
God bless her. Thank you, honey. She's turning the heat off. See, there it is. Here comes the dogs. Come on, guys. Come on, get in here. There you go. Get up there. Good girl. How are you this morning? Hi, babies. Thank you, honey.
Yeah, I turned the heat on.
All right, baby. Love you. Yeah, so look, I can tell you guys, it takes nothing for you to pick up the phone and call your son. It takes nothing for you to pick up the phone and call your daughter. Hey, get up here now. You know, it takes nothing for you. Look, get a mirror out. Get a mirror out. Get a mirror out. Look in the mirror of a car on the side of the street if you're living on the road and just say, thank you for being alive today. I mean, you got to understand. I told Darius the other day, it's the crumbs that make the meal. It's Daisy, come here now. Daisy, get up on that couch right now. Now lay down. It's the crumbs that make a meal. And I can tell you, folks, make no mistake about it. It is the little things. So you start off small. None of us would ever, again, like I said last week, none of us would ever just go run a marathon if we'd never run a marathon today. My God, we'd end up more than likely, me especially at my age, I'd be dead. I'd be dead. If you put a gun to my head and said, okay, with all your might, I want you to run a marathon, and if you don't finish, I'm going to kill you. I'd be dead. I'd be long dead before they ever shot me. I don't have it in me to run that. There you go, Jeff. Yeah. But, Jeff, that doesn't mean that you and I couldn't have a cold beer tonight or a glass of OJ, look on the internet and say, okay, over the course of this 6 months, we're going to do this progressively. And what we do is we just ramp up, and now we're ready. Are we not, Jeff? So it takes a little bit of strategic planning, right? And that's the thing I can tell you about advertising that is most important from my perspective. Digging for gold. That is most important from my perspective is you set a goal. You make a plan. You put the plan in action, and you don't deviate from the plan, knowing that you're going to deviate. Fuck it, admit it, you're going to deviate from the plan. That doesn't mean that you're starting over. Believe me, you're that much closer to your goal. So what do? You give yourself the benefit of the doubt. You don't flog yourself. You don't come into something like this and say, oh God, I'm starting over. You start from there. So all you do is implement your plan again, engage again, and you're off and running. Now, last but not least, here's where the real problem is. I see it all the time. We accomplish these goals and we don't celebrate them. A great example, each one of you wanted to be on this call. You showed up on this call, but understand it took preparation to get on this call. You had to set the goal. You had to make a plan. You had to ask yourself a question. Do you believe in the plan? You had to put the plan in action and not deviate from the plan. And you obviously didn't deviate because you're here. Okay? You did this today when you made coffee or hot chocolate or orange juice, or maybe you had to take a drink of the hair of the dog that bit you last night. Who knows? But the bottom line is, even when we bathe, even when we shower, even when we take a dump, even when we brush our teeth, every one of those, whether you believe it or not, you got to set a goal to brush your teeth. You got to ask yourself a question after you put a plan in order to brush your teeth. Do you believe in the plan? And then you got to put the plan in action. You got to do the same thing with combing your hair. You got to do the same thing with putting on your makeup if you're going to put on your makeup. You got to do the same thing every time. Start over, putting on your clothes. This is the reason why people don't brush their teeth every day. This is the reason why people don't comb their hair every day. This is the reason why people don't make their bed every day. Because what we think we can do is abbreviate it. Well, I can tell you this right now. Foundations matter. If you have a home without a foundation, you're fucked. It's going to crumble eventually. All right? So when it comes to short-term goals, your short-term goals are taking a dump, getting up in the morning, cleaning yourself, cleaning your teeth, getting the sleep out of your eyes, putting in your contacts, taking a shower, getting your food prepared. Think of how many short-term goals our forefathers and mothers had to put together at Owings Brockway or Corningware or Coca-Cola, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, 38-year careers before they finally reached their long-term goal. Well, so often what I see out there is these people who want to be the influencer. They want to be that you know, have that sailboat, have that car, have that big house, have that time off, be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want. Listen, most of those people have worked years and years for that. Or they got it overnight. And I can tell you right now, you can look back and there is just one educational moment in time after another of people. Like one of the most famous ones I remember was a guy that I grew up with named Vanilla Ice. Vanilla Ice came, you see some heads nodding out there. He came out of nowhere, didn't he, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, he came out of nowhere. I mean, the difference between him and Eminem, look at Eminem's story and understand Eminem won't spend a dime. He won't spend a dime. Because what he learned is, I ain't going back to 8 Mile. It ain't going to happen. I mean, they can't even get him to buy a watch, for God's sakes. Now, what do you see Vanilla Ice doing now? I don't even remember his first name, but anyway, in real life, look, he's turned out to be
Rob Van Winkle.
Yes, he turned out to be a quality gentleman, and now he's living a very good life again. But I'll tell you what, folks, he took advantage of a second chance, because we don't all get them. We don't. Bullshit. That's bullshit. Every morning when you wake up, you got another chance. Our problem is we have a tendency to say to ourselves, I've been a failure up until now, or I failed. And it's like, hey, man, it's a new day. It's a new day. I was thinking about this the other day. What would I do if I lost everything and I were homeless? What would I do? I'd probably go right back to pushing the lawnmower. I may even go over to someone like Darius's house and say, hey, Darius, or Jeff Cros's house and say, hey, Jeff, can I borrow your lawnmower for the day? There's going to be some wear and tear on it. I'm going to go mow some lawns. I'm going to need a gallon of gas, and would you mind if I slept in your garage? If you got a blanket for me and a cot, we got something we can put down. I don't need much out of you, brother. I'll go make my way in the world. And then what I'll do is the righteous thing at the end of the day, when all's said and done, a month or two from now, I'll buy you a new lawnmower. God is my witness. But right now, I'm going to do this. Look, if you came to me with a plan like that, I'd give you a bed in my home. You with me? But so often, what do we see with these people? These people have a tendency to accept where they're at. It's really sad to me. Or they think in their head they're not worthy of going and asking mom and dad again, or aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, friends and family again. Look, folks, when you know, you know. When you know, you know. That's one thing I know. Like my ex-wife, she could tell you right now, they're on a 149-foot sailboat up in the San Juans right now, her and her husband, and she would tell you, I saw my husband, Brett Martin, again and again and again and again dive into things he knew nothing about because it inspired him. And in no time, somehow he sorted through it and it became something palatable, something you and I would be willing to eat. And the sad part about it, from her perspective, is what she would tell you is, I kept track of it and it tired me out. It wore me out. Because again and again, he would come home and said, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. What's interesting about her is she's one of these types of people who wanted to do things, but never did them. So many times she'd tell me, I'd like to be a nurse. I'd be like, we have the money. You have the time. Let's get a nanny. Let's get it done. But again and again and again, she let herself down. She was called. Now, that's not to say that the world stopped and, no one became a nurse. Millions of people around her became nurses. Why didn't she? Her and I were talking about it the other day, and she's still dealing with this psychologically. Here she is, she inherits this money from her father's death recently. She has all this guilt associated with it. And for the first time recently, she's seeing a psychiatrist. in a world, by the way, where she would have never done that before. But what's happening is there's a level of discomfort that just won't leave. It's been harboring inside the port of her body now for 45, 50 years. And it has everything to do with the fact that in her brain, again and again, she intends and wants to do things, but she doesn't do it. And I'll tell you, folks, you talk about chemistry, you talk about imbalance, you talk about disharmony. I can tell you, those are the people that I meet that are full of disharmony, full of dissatisfaction, you know. And if you have been that person up until then, or up until today, that's behind you now. That's behind you now. Today's a new day. So what do? What do they say? How do you eat an elephant?
Bite at a time.
A little.
One bite at a time. So that's how you're going to accomplish this. You're going to accomplish this one bite at a time. Jeff Graw and I, for 6 months, one bite at a time, we work on that marathon. And the next thing you know, brother, we run a marathon together. And you know for a fact, Jeff, because it would be such an amazingly strong bonding environment, we would cross the finish line together, holding hands and celebrating and hugging each other, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And why don't we do more of this as human beings? I tell you what it is, folks. I know this is. What really is hard for us right now is picking one. Picking one. So this is what I would recommend to you. Understand, we live in a world where you and I have all these alternative choices. And I respect that. I feel that way too. I've got them all over my desk throughout my house. So what you do is you designate a portion of your day where you say to yourself, I'm going to eat this elephant one bite at a time. I'm going to spend 15 minutes on this idea. And then I'm done. Then I'm done. Have the discipline to walk away. Go to the next idea, the next concept, the next opportunity. Spend 15 minutes on it. But don't spend so much time on it that you say to yourself, you know, God, I'm frustrated. I've been at this for 12 and a half hours. Listen, maybe that's a medium-term goal or a long-term goal, and you're not going to reach it today. So differentiate between what are your short-term goals, what are your medium-term goals, and what are your long-term goals. And understand, you're not going to reach your medium-term goal and your long-term goal today. That doesn't mean you can't be one step closer, like Jeff and I run in the marathon. We're one step closer each and every day. And if we use our head, Jeff, and we follow, and we don't break stride, that's why we don't want to follow everything they recommend, because there's some real professionals out there that have charted this for you and I. We'll be fine. At the end of the 6 months, we're running that San Diego, the Boston Marathon, whatever it is. We're running that marathon, you know. But so few of us, we have the goal because we want the change. We arrive on this platform. We're in euphoria. We've got the endorphins. We've got the dopamine being released. We're excited beyond words. We're excited beyond words. In fact, I was kind of hoping, I'm going to read this to you. This came from Linda a little bit ago. I don't think Linda's on the phone. But more importantly, I would love it if Eric were on the phone. Eric, are you out there by chance? All right, let me read this to you. This is from Eric Richens. And if I have my way, we'll have him on the call next week so you ladies and gentlemen can talk to him. He just funded a $70,000 loan. Here's what he wrote. Is that Eric?
Right.
No. All right, here's what Eric wrote. He wrote this to Linda, his national sales manager. You know, that one was easy because he needed money, and I made a lot of phone calls, and I couldn't get anybody that wanted a loan. So I kept listening to Brett Martin's videos, his recordings, of hang in there, stick with it, get bruised, get beaten, get your nose bloody. You're going to war. This isn't going to be easy, but you're still going to have to win and do something about it. You know, those all things, he says, you got to get past the gatekeeper. And that was the most difficult part, was getting past the gatekeeper, but you got to do exactly how he does it. But he grabbed Robert for me, grab Dave, grab Cindy. Who is this? This is Eric, right? So I've been listening to all this stuff. I had to get it in my head in order to make those phone calls, but it paid off when I started using his method. And I can tell you, folks, I didn't teach you that method because it doesn't work. I can tell you right now, Jeff, when I call your house, and let's say your wife or your husband is named, Patrick or Patty, you with me?
Yep.
When they answer, since I've been calling your house so much, because we're getting ready for this marathon, all I got to do is just say to Patty, oh, hey, Patty, grab Jeff for me, will you, quick? And she's like, yeah, Brett, good to talk to you, right? Because I'm calling her so much, right? And that's what's going on with that lady or gentleman, he, she, or they at the front desk. They're used to that environment in their own lives. So that's all you're doing, is going in on the heels of those discussions that have taken place for the last 40, 50, 60, 70, 25 years in their lives, where you're just calling someone, hi, this is Thelma with, Coca-Cola. How can I help you today? Oh, hey, Thelma, grab Brian for me quick, will you? Next thing you know, Brian's on the phone. And that's what he was talking about there. He kind of had some broken sentences in there because he was doing it via voice recording, and obviously it doesn't get it right every time. But yeah, I'd like to get Eric on the phone to talk a little bit about this. I'll tell you something about Eric. Darius and I've realized this about Eric. The man is a friggin' animal, is he not, Darius?
That's right.
He's a beast. He's an absolute beast. I mean, there's times where we get his emails and it's like, oh my God, please. I mean, it's like, I kind of want to do the skull and crossbones. But now we've gotten used to his system, and what it really is, Teresa, you're smiling, it's enthusiasm. That's what it is. This guy's blindly, this level of enthusiasm, I don't get to see very often. So at first I'm kind of like, I don't trust this. But then pretty soon it's like, oh, whoa, this person has got some staying power. So it'd be nice to bring someone like that in here and let him tell you about what's going on out there. But anyway, let's close on a couple. I got to get in this meeting in 24 minutes. But let's close on a couple. Anything you ladies and gentlemen want to share about your life, your day, the week, anything, go ahead. Anything?
Yeah.
That JG has a question. Go ahead, JG.
Brett, a couple of weeks ago, I sent you an email regarding a topic from one of your meetings. You had spoken with a gentleman, I think his initials were JD. And during the conversation, he mentioned he was using, or he knew of an associate that helped him get deals with AI. He was a marketing specialist. Did you recall that? You didn't respond to my email. That's why I'm bringing it up now.
I don't recall it. I don't recall it. And I don't know anyone getting stuff from AI. Do you, Darius?
No, it doesn't sound familiar at all.
Well, in my email, I specified the
I got your email here. For whatever reason, it's in my spam.
Well, we got to check spam, right? Nonetheless,
You see Darius here also. And I reference this at 57 minutes, 14 seconds in.
yes.
And I'll look at that at 3:26, okay? And I'll let you know.
Okay. And one final question. At the end of the year, you send out, or your company sends out 1099s?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. I'm good. Thank you.
It's really between the 1st and the 31st of the following year. So it's January of 2027, you'll get your 2026 1099s.
That's fine. I appreciate it.
You betcha. You betcha.
Jim, Teresa, go ahead, please.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hello, woman. You've been my wife a couple times today.
I'm saying.
Here, let me give you some tea. How's that sound?
Thank you, love. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
I actually just sent you an email, a thank you email, because I personally am going through a shitload of stuff. But one thing I have been, the main thing of what I wanted to share is that one thing I've been learning this year is about me honoring my word to myself. And just like whatever little things that I want to do, like how I want to start my morning, just being consistent in that little thing. Whether it's stretching in the morning, 5 minutes of silence, my vibration plate, dry brushing, whatever. And so when this opportunity actually came back around from 3 years ago, and I was so like, oh my God, I don't even remember how I allowed the ball to drop. But it didn't even matter. It didn't even matter at that moment, because it was like, you know what? It came back around for a reason. And this time I'm going full force. And so I've done a little bit of something every single day, to the point where today I took off of my regular job because I got to get some other stuff done. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to print out 10 colored copies for liquor stores. And as I'm running around, I'm just going to jump into these stores. Dog City, my godmother's little like Yorkie, and I have him strapped to me, and I'm like running my errands and then running into liquor stores, and I'm like, hey, you know, so I'm there with you. So I definitely appreciate what you're speaking about, especially today. And I meant to tell you a while ago, I'm so grateful to see that you're drinking, because a long time ago you couldn't even drink.
Yeah, no, it's going down too. That's what's so cool. I'm gonna have surgery here in 2 weeks. I have what they call strictures, and they're gonna expand my throat again. But hey, along those lines, I give you an idea here. So you go ripping into that liquor store, you walk right up to the counter. There's Joe, there's Jennifer, whatever. You hand it to them. Good morning, Charmaine. Good to see you. And you just hand him the flyer and say, hey, by the way, I was hired to drop these off on behalf of Teresa. You with me?
Okay.
Now the beauty of this is that will keep them from asking any questions. You with me? Because oftentimes we're thinking to ourselves, oh God, I hope I don't get asked a question I don't know the answer to. Or what if I get asked a question in here and there's a line and they don't have time to talk? This is just, hey, I was hired to drop these off on behalf of Teresa. Have a wonderful day. Okay.
I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, it works.
I'm not shy away from questions either. I'm an Aquarius.
The beauty of this is it's kind of like that realtor team atmosphere where they're saying to themselves, well, whoever this Teresa lady is, she must have some dough since she's hiring someone to do stuff on her behalf. And it gives you a little street cred there. You with me?
Okay, yeah.
It gives you like you've got a team behind you, and it works really, really well. Give that a try.
I'll do that with the rest that I have today.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Lisa, Mark, you're up.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to say I've been going out to banks, walking in there, asking for a loan officer, and it's worked amazingly well. I think I've got to talk to almost every bank I've been into.
It's nothing, is it? It's nothing.
It's nothing, yeah. And so I just wanted to tell a story. I went into one bank, and they were, went gung-ho for it, and I went back a week later, like you mentioned. And I just went in there. I did. The reason I said was, we can now handle $2.5 million. And they said, well, Mark, we had a meeting for all our branches last week, and I photocopied everything you had, and I handed it out to all the loan officers in those branches, 13 other branches.
Hell
so
yeah!
Just saying, this stuff works. So I haven't got anything going yet, but I'm going to keep.
Well,
keep
I'll tell you
away.
what, brother, you do, and you don't know it.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's amazing. It's a great story. Carolyn Mays talks about. She had this guy who needed this root from Africa, and she knew that she could save his life with this. He had some really like sickle cell anemia or something, and this particular route just worked amazingly well. And of all the things on the face of the planet, she'd been trying to find his address, trying to find a phone number. He felt the vibe, bro, and he had sent it in the United States in the Postal Service there from here to the US. And she went out to the mail, and there it was. And she administered it to this guy in the hospital along with the conventional methods. 3 days later, the man's life was saved. And it's something they use in Africa, like it's going out of style for sickle cell anemia. I kind of blow on that. But anyway, it's happening, Mark. Don't you dare look, man. Think of it like a summer sleeve, a summer sausage, and you and I take the meat out of it. And then that sleeve, that old cat gut sleeve is laying flat on the counter, and we cut both ends off. And what you're doing now is you're shoving stuff in one end. Don't you stop. Because what's going to happen is shit's going to start coming out the other end. You with me, brother?
Yeah.
Now, where do we end up with bubbles where we don't have any meat coming out on the other end is exactly when we've stopped 4.5 weeks ago, 4 days ago, whatever it is. For me, I like to look at this industry and say I live in 5 to 7 day cycles where I'm getting paid. The mortgage industry, the work I do today will show up in 30 days. The stock brokerage industry, the work I used to do that day would show up in 60 days. And so, you're in a situation, I would say with banks, the work you do today will show up in 3 to 4 weeks. That's my cycle, 3 to 4 weeks with banks. And if you're trying to get her or them to sleep with you before then, sorry, Charlie, you've been too quick. It's like walking up to a chick in a bar or a guy in a bar and saying, hey, by the way, how'd they like to go hit it in the parking lot? It doesn't work very well. You with me? It just doesn't work very well. It's not a good thing. So just take your time, keep doing what you're doing, and it's going to be huge for you. Teresa, you and I get along great. You're a laugher. I love that. Darius laughs like hell, and him and I laugh all day long. Here I am going through. Talk about a lot of problems. Everyone I know is going through a lot of problems right now. Keith, you're getting a good big smile. God, it's good to see you guys' smile.
Yeah, it's
We got John.
touching
John,
home,
you're
I
up
could
next.
say.
What was that, Keith?
I said it's touching home today, that's for sure. And since I got you real quick on the question with the Teresa for saying she's hired, can you use that method as well on the phone? Where you could say, I'm supposed to send you a flyer.
Oh,
Can I get
hell
his
yeah,
email?
that's a great idea. Yeah. That's just act like you're a telemarketer working on behalf of Keith. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
I
that's
can
a
just
great
get the email real quick without a lot of nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What's that?
What do you got hanging in the background there, Shemaine? The light's on it. I can see it. What is that? Big and round. Big and round in the background.
It's a mandala.
I know it is. I know what I'm looking at. Right on.
Exactly. So
Pretty cool.
I'm your Taurus with the Sag rising. So we're like
Ah,
you and your son both in the same spot. So hey, this week I went to a BNI meeting and treated it exactly like the Chamber of Commerce style. And what was really cool is the guy that was sitting right next to me was with Paychex, who was a payroll company for a lot of different small businesses. And then I met with a lady from Bank of America, who's a loan officer and doing loans, but of course they are not really giving out too many loans these days. And then at the same time in that referral group, and I was just a visitor, one of the ladies is a realtor who immediately started to talk to me about this guy who has a couple of credit issues or whatnot that just came up. And she's like, oh, well, maybe we can get a loan with you guys. And then, after they sort it out, they can, refinance for a better rate or whatever the case may be. So it was really cool. I grabbed all of their business cards and sent out emails as soon as I came back. It was great to meet you. This is what I do. And I had some really great responses of like, hey, we'll be on the lookout for referrals on that. So I just wanted to share that as
Great
a
job.
possibility.
Great job.
And then I'm on school because before I met you guys, well, way back I was in the financial services. I had a credit repair company, but I went back into the arts, and I have a couple of small businesses. I have a gemstone. One is called Born Mystics. It's all mystical stuff. So, but you might like that. But I've been on school. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that platform, but it's a teaching platform. And I'm in a women's group that has a lot of ladies who are doing small businesses. And I had been doing pitches to them on my other businesses. And this week I got on a call with them and said, well, now I'm incorporating loans as well. I'm doing loans. I'm back into it. This is what I'm going to focus on for the next 30 days in this platform. And
Jermaine, I'm going to interject and say to you, you realize this is a man's world.
That don't mean nothing.
And I can tell you this right. No, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You will not find this product in women entrepreneurial groups. Is because men won't go there, and the bulk of the people in this industry are men, and men are pigs. I kid you not. Most men I know are pigs. You get in those women's groups. I got a girl, I can tell you right now, you look her up, Lois Mulrooney, up there in Salem, Oregon, owns her own mortgage company. And I got in her head for 5.5 years daily, and I just ground on her. Like, you're going to go after these women. You stay away from men. You go after these women. She's got one of the largest women networks on the face of the planet. You can't imagine what this girl does in mortgages. But it doesn't matter what it is. These women need help. You know, it's no different than the Japanese or the Australians or the Russians or the Jews or the Black community. All these communities, everywhere you look, need this help, and we're not helping them, you know. And really, honestly, you should segregate this and look at it and say, you know, I'm going after this segment of people. He or she, they. I can tell you right now, I've got people who kill it in the gay industry because they're gay, you know, and it is an industry. I don't care what anyone tells me. I can tell you, I turn on the TV right now, and what do I see? I see HIV commercials. I see commercials with gay people, lesbian people, you know, and it is an industry in and of itself. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that from a marketing standpoint. You want to be in it? Be in it. If you want to be in alcohol, be in alcohol. If you want to be in tobacco, be in tobacco. You don't have to be if it's against your religious choices. But I can tell you right now, women entrepreneurs, my God, get ready. Yeah, get ready.
We got this.
Because I can tell you this. I can tell you this. The banking world is full of a bunch of old white boys, and they're way older than me. And they don't like women. They don't. I can tell you, you want me to get into bigotry and racism, I'll go right there with you and tell you that entire application is set up for a great example. I buy and sell guns. I've got my federal firearms license, okay? Over the weekend, stay there.
I need to re-up, so I need to contact Brett.
I buy this gun right here for $150,000, okay? Now, it's a gun that is sold for 600 grand and 640 grand. All right. It's a one of a kind Marlin from 1893. Here it is here. Now, the beauty of it is what you can do with this gun right here is go like this. And what happens is the barrel comes off. Okay. And what you could do is put a whole new barrel on there. Well, I know how to do it, but it's not doing it. Obviously, it's going to make me look like an idiot. Anyway, but the bottom line in this, I could tell you, is that the guy that I bought this gun from at this discounted price had gotten himself in trouble. And I could tell you, folks, this type of trouble exists everywhere. It's everywhere with these business owners out there. And this was one of them. So we were talking about merchant cash advance, and the next thing I know, I'm like, brother, you don't have time to wait for a merchant cash advance. You need cash. What do you got that you could sell? Have you got anything? He goes, well, it's funny you should mention this. I've got a gun for sale here and I'd like to discount it. Well, I know guns really well. And I ended up buying this gun for next to nothing. I'm going to turn around and sell it, make over 400 grand on it. But I can tell you what it takes is you've got to be willing, like you've done here, Charmaine, to get in there, to get the conversation going. And then these things evolve into something great for you. They just do. So I'm proud of you for putting your nose in there. I'm proud
Thank
of you.
you. Well, she was, you know, one of the leader of that group. She was like, all right, well, and she started with me in the call. So she's like, all right, what are you up to? What are we focusing on for the next 30 days? And then I shared it with her and everybody else on the call. And she said, all right, on the weekends, you're allowed to put a live link inside the community. She said, do you have a landing page? I said, no, but I'm a tech expert. So I was like, all right, I'll set that up. It took me 20 minutes. And she's like, all right, put the link for the landing page in there and it'll start feeding you. And then I started to post about it. And I've got women like, hey, can you do it for Canada? Can you, and I was like, well, we're USA right now, right? Any of the states.
You know what I see? You know the old forts that we used to have when we were kids. If you go back to the 50s and 60s, they were everywhere. The tree house. And what did I have up above? No girls allowed. And then there were the forts, no boys allowed. That's the way your ad should read. Right across the top. No boys allowed.
No boys allowed.
No boys allowed. Loans for women or loans for ladies. I specialize in loans for ladies. I can tell you those are those head grabbers. Those eye grabbers. You with me?
Yeah, that's a
I
phenomenal
see it.
idea.
All you're doing is going off this really old thing that exists. We're all laughing about it, but it used to be a big deal. No boys allowed. No girls allowed. Yeah. Anyway. Thank you, Sinead, very much.
Yep. We got room for one last question from John. John,
Big
go ahead.
John. Big John.
With that,
John, move
there
on.
he is. There he
John,
is.
move-
Thank you for thinking about that because I kept my hand up and I just,
You're good.
when
I see it.
when you get Brett my age and some of us that are that age, you're patient. I'm a very patient person the older I get. What I wanted to say is I don't have a question, but I felt compelled to say that first of all, I want to thank everybody being on this call. If it wasn't for you, I still wouldn't be able to still learn because the questions you guys ask are so phenomenal. But I also want to give credit to Brett and Darius. And what I want to tell you two is thank you for whatever you had to overcome to get to where you're at, because it's people like you that I have followed for years. And I always loved Brett, how he shares his real things that are going on in his life. You don't see a lot of gurus do that. You don't see a lot of people. I've been around a long time, and Brett is probably the most forthright person I have ever seen. And I love everything that he says. And I can tell you right now, if you'll duplicate what he's saying, I promise you'll succeed in the way you need to succeed. And I always remember the famous words of Winston Churchill. He told the troops, never, ever, 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 ever give up. Because if it's meant to be, it's up to you. That's why the word you stands for your own uniqueness. Be who you are. Don't compare yourself to anybody, but you can take people like Darius or Brett or Theresa or Jeff, Charles, Mark, any of them, and they've got something to share. You know why? Because your story needs to be heard. So overcome, do what you got to do. Use this platform if this is what it is. But the most important thing is be who you are, and don't ever forget that. Love yourself, forgive yourself, like yourself, adore yourself, and you'll go very far in anything that you do, and it will keep you young forever. That's what I want to
John,
say.
that's what you and I realize is there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a man or being a woman and loving themselves, being kind to themselves. And it takes us all these years of maturation to realize, my God, I was hard on myself. My God, I didn't forgive myself. And you know, what's even worse is we didn't forgive others oftentimes. We carried on with our ego and our vanity. And it's like, good God, think of how many times you were there with a tight stomach or tight shoulders. And you're like, I'm all upset and carrying on like a 5-year-old child on a playground. My feelings are hurt, you know, and God, if I had all those moments in time back, that's why it's so important for me every day to wake up and say, this is a new day, man. Those days are behind me. Nothing wrong with an education. I mean, I'll reflect back on this conversation a day from now, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now. But at the same time, I'm just going to do it for educational purposes. Or like my conversations with Darius, which has just been tremendous. Him and I have really gotten down and gotten funky with it in a short period of time. It's for laughter. It's not for pain. You know, I'll tell you guys, I was thinking about it over the weekend. My dad died in 1991, and I'm just now starting to put some notes to paper because what I really want to do is write a tremendous story. There's a great writer in the 40s. Guy's name was Robert Rourke, and he wrote a book like Zulu Dawn, some other books, but one of the books was The Old Man's Boy Grows Older, and The Old Man and the Boy was the one prior to that. The sequel was The Old Man's Boy Grows Older. And I had this amazingly rich upbringing with my dad, separate from Peggy, my mom, separate from my brothers. Because when my dad would get out in the woods or out on a creek or a river or a stream, he was a different guy. And I told my dad again and again and again when I hit 17, 18, 19, 20, when I started to see a shrink, I'm like, dude, you've got to be a park ranger. You've got to be a guide. You've got to be involved in the world that you love so much as opposed to trying to be over here in this world. And so often we're not involved in the things that really get us off, that really create that environment where if we do it, we never will work again. And so that being said, John, I could tell you that's what I'm doing here. I don't feel like I'm working. I actually feel like to hear Mark Lauber say that he's going into these banks, it's like, hell yes, brother, because I know he can't miss there. And I know Mark well enough now with his emails, he'll keep going. And Mark, you probably could easily say to yourself, maybe that you got a little bit of a late start, right? That you probably should have went into banks earlier, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But come on, dude, you did it. And that's what matters, right? Who's keeping score? Who's keeping score? It's bullshit to keep score. The bottom line is you did it, you know? And so for me, I always say to myself, it's like, look, I intended to do this and I did it. That's key number 7 in my keys to success. And that is to make sure you have your dance, metaphorically speaking. And I use the old African tribe environment from, 100 years ago or 50 years ago in National Geographic, where you see the fire and the dark background and the trees and, the light flashing among the trees and the shadows, and they're beating the drums and they're having their dance and their gear. But one thing John and I, they don't have the dance the next day. They don't wake up drinking the spirits the next day and dance. They're now getting caught up, cleaned up, ready to go, and they're probably going out again, right? Because they realize it's that old story behind the gazelle and the lion. You're either getting eaten or you're going to go hungry, right? One or the other. And unfortunately, there's too many of us nowadays getting eaten. And it saddens me, quite frankly. It really does. But anyway, all right, anyone else? Go ahead. I got the other meeting line.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
Hey, Darius, I got
Yeah.
one question. Hey, I talked to my cousin in Chicago. I wanted to ask Brett. He was saying something about he had, I guess he had 2 owners that he knows that took out, like, I guess it was the MCA loans, and they take out a percentage before they take out a percentage before up front. You know what I'm talking about, Brett?
Yeah, so we take out a set amount, like a dollar amount daily, weekly, twice a month, or monthly, or we'll take a percentage of their sales. As an example, let's say they bring in $1,000 that day, we take out 7%. So we're going to take out $70. Okay.
Okay.
Now let's say the next day they only bring in $100. We can't take out $70. That'd be 70%. We're only taking out 7%. So we'll take $7 that day. You with me?
Yes. Okay.
So are you telling me that they took the money out beforehand? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Yeah, he said that, you know, I told him, well, I believe they have, you know, term loans also. I don't, you know, I didn't know for sure. I was just telling him, I said, man, I don't know, because that's a question I would have to come to in the meeting when I get there on Monday.
Yeah, we're a merchant cash advance company, but we're more of a hybrid than we are our competitors. You know,
Okay.
like a great example on the funding call, we don't say to someone like Teresa, hey, now get ready, Teresa. Today's Monday. We're funding your loan today. You'll have the money in the bank by 4:30 this afternoon. And tomorrow morning, woman, you're paying us. We'll just come up with a good period. How's it sound? What do you think we should start? What do you think next Friday? And she's like, well, no, you know, I'd be okay if you guys started next week. You can start on Monday. That's fine. So we kind of work that out among one another. But it's definitely going to come out of their daily, weekly, twice a month, or monthly. And the only way it comes out monthly, as an example, is if they're in an industry where their cash flow only comes in at the first of the month. Like you and I, Charles, let's say you and I are 18, 19, we get our first apartment together. We're paying that landlord between the 1st and the 5th, right? Well, that property management group is getting their money right then. So that's when we're going to extract money out of their bank account, because they don't have money throughout the rest of the month. They get a strong cash flow at the first of the month. So your property management groups, your medical facilities, your adult care facilities, daycare facilities, which, Darius, we never see, do we? Ever in underwriting, ever. And I don't know, I told you this weekend, didn't I, Darius? Hotels, you know, hospitality. If people would go after these businesses, the commissions are massive. And I can tell you, they're used to taking these loans. They're used to taking them, so they don't have a bunch of questions. There's no resistance versus calling on a guy or a gal that owns a quilting shop and she does, you know, $5,000 a month, or a guy who sells baseball cards, sports memorabilia, and does $3,000 a month. They're going to ask you umpteen million questions, you know.
You said daycare, hotels, and hospitality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That's all I needed.
Hey,
You
Charles,
betcha.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks.
You betcha.
all the hands are cleared, so it's pretty much free open forum for anybody to ask a question.
What was the first one before the hospitality?
Hotels, motels. Do not forget motels, bro. Because a lot of motels are independent. They're not part of the Choice Hotel brands. Like if you type in the computer in Google, Choice Hotel brands, that's what I own. I own Choice Hotels, a lot of them. And I'm buying them all the time, quite frankly, right now. But you're going to want to go for those no-name brand motels also. Don't forget those. But let's understand, okay? Right here in Medford, I own 3 hotels, and I'm going to tell you right now, folks, we are 100% full every single night, 8 months out of the year. We're 88% full the rest of the year. You want to buy in a market like this because it's a major thoroughfare for people to get a quick night's sleep. They don't know. Over 98% of them don't even eat the continental breakfast. The reason behind it is my team hasn't even started making the breakfast. They're already on the road. So they're just going through. In fact, what I'm doing right now, Keith, is I'm building motel model that I've got in mind, which is identical to Old Man Hilton, right by the railroad tracks. If you read his book about the original Old Man Hilton, the way he made his money, was what they call like pigeonhole parking, where you just come in and you get these stacked, you climb a ladder, you get a bed. You climb a ladder, you get a bed. And I'm going to get these down to $25, $30 a night, where people can just come and you got a common shower down the hall, just like a KOA campground, or over in Britain, they have a lot of this for housing. And it keeps the cost down so you don't have a toilet and a bathroom in every room, which costs you 45 to 50 grand. Now, that being said, where am I going with this? Wear and tear. I have a tremendous amount of wear and tear on my hotels because I'm in a high traffic area. So what happens, Keith, and the rest of you, is at a certain number of nightly stays, I have to remodel that room. And they know what that model is inside now, where the carpets are getting worn, the shades are getting worn out, the bathtub and the caulking is starting to go to shit in the shower area.
Mattress.
The doors are no longer working as well. So what they do is, rather than having you, and you've all been there, if you've ever gone to a hotel, you've probably been there, where you look at it and a certain wing of the hotel is under construction. So at any given time, we've got to have typically somewhere around 30% of our rooms being remodeled about every 16 months. Well, they don't have the money for that, bro. And that's how I'm landing these, by the way. One of you bring one in, especially from my other platforms, because we've got a massive group out there that's not just on this platform. I do this all week. And someone brings in a hotel, I look at it and it's like, well, shit, we have to deny them, but they're doing $980,000 a month. It's like, hey, can you hook me up with this owner? I get on the phone with Blythe or Bill and Blythe or whatever. And it's like, hey, look, you guys are having some problems here. Take care, Teresa. Have a great day. Au revoir.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, girl. We'll have to get a divorce, huh?
Yes, I don't think my husband's going to like this.
Yeah, amen. Amen. My wife won't like it either.
Yeah, I don't want her to beat me up either.
Yeah, there you go. Amen.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Yeah, so they don't have the money for this. And what's going to happen, Keith, is they're going to lose their brand. That's what happens, see? You look at a hotel every once in a while, like, well, they changed their name. They lost their brand, bro. So now there's lower brands out there than Choice Hotels. And those are those Super 8s and Motel 6. You with me? And that's why they start to use that brand. They still have the benefit of a national branding behind them and franchise fees, but the rooms are 30, 40, 50% less. You with me? And they require that the upkeep is less. That's why you go in these hotels and oftentimes they look way older, more beat up. But then you go in the room, at least the room, at least the linen is clean, the sheets are clean, the shower's clean. But you look at it and you're like, wow, this thing's really decrepit and beat up. And it's like, so they allow that on those lesser brands. But I could tell you, those hotels right now, here's your problem, okay? These are being handed down to kids. And what does the second and third generation do? They bastardize it, they screw it up, they destroy it. Next thing you know, they got to have a boat, they got to have these new vehicles, they got to get a plane, they got to get more land. Next thing you know, they've raped and pillaged and burned down, this cash flow. Now it's negative. And what do? Just like the people on Craigslist, they end up selling me the golden goose at a discounted price. And all I do is I get them out of their debt. That's all I do. And I end up assuming the property. So it's a great market for you guys and gals out there, because Choice Hotels does not supply this money. And I've asked them again and again to let me come in, put on a presentation at the corporate level and supply this money, but they just won't do it. It's the same with McDonald's. I've tried many times with McDonald's, but it's a great market. Look at your hotels, motels, and your adult care facilities, because that's the other thing is, when it comes to adult care facilities, you've got the state and the feds in there all the time looking at the quality of that place for those people that are staying there that are elderly. And they have 3 different degrees of quality. Like, great example, in your neighborhood, you could have a home that has, 6 people that are staying there in an adult care facility. They've got less, stringent guidelines than a community that has 600 units. Make sense, Keith?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So there's inspections on the healthcare, and there's inspections by choice to make sure that the place
and
is
requirements
upgraded.
for upgrades. Got to keep
Yeah.
those upgrades. Got to keep that elevator upgraded. Got to keep with the new compliance rules on plumbing and lighting, electrical. They go through all these. It's a great example for me. I never rolled all my companies into one. Everything stands alone. And then that way, if for some reason something happens to the industry, it doesn't get me all the way through. It just gets me in 1 or 2 locations, and the same that. So anyway,
Basically a corporate setup individually versus as one group. And Choice has like eight hotel names, right?
oh, there's more than that. Another one, by the way, is Subway restaurants. That's another one that's huge, right? McDonald's is huge. We just don't get those people. Nevada Bob's. And the reason behind it is most people think that they're not worthy of contacting those companies. Or you're thinking to yourself oftentimes, come on, that McDonald's owner is wealthy. Hey, listen, 20 years ago, my buddy in Damascus, Oregon owned 5 McDonald's and was making in his pocket net over $1 million a piece on those 5 McDonald's a year, over $5 million a year. He sold those, but the guy who's running them now is making an average of $165,000 on each one of those 5. And the same thing goes for Subway. You used to be able to own a Subway, make 140, 150 grand a year. Now you only make 35 grand a year. So you've got to own 3 to 5 of them to make a great living, to keep up with today's standards at 100 to 125 grand a year. So yeah, they're always looking for money, always, because they have to buy another they have to buy another location, and they can use this money to buy another location. Yeah.
And they're able to get the owners, or just send an email and get it to them.
Yeah, I sent him a flyer. I'd send him a flyer.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Flyer. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Because I could tell you right now, your Subway restaurant owners are not in the building unless you get in there right at the beginning of the day. Right at the beginning of the day. They're getting everyone lined out. They're helping out with, because in the back room, think about this, coming in on that loading dock, you got your meat, you got your salad, stuff, you've got your dressings. I mean, it is a mass amount of crap that comes into that building for supplies every day. And she or he that will be there, or they will be there. It's a great time to be out there. Yeah. And the way I approach them, Keith, is I would go in the back with all the other vendors, because that's where the vendors go. So why wouldn't I? Because I'm a vendor. And that's what I learned with delis, with restaurants, is you just go in the back during that time. And you make sure for restaurants, you're not going in at the breakfast hour, the lunch hour, or the dinner hour.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just I'm all remote, so I got to do the phone.
The flyer's gold, dude. The flyer's just gold.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, do you find that the nursing homes and stuff, are the owners usually there?
Oh, hey man, I own a couple old folks homes, and I can tell you right now in this area, and I sneak by there all the time. And the reason behind it is a lot of these wealthy families are paying with cash. And by God, dude, I want my $18,000 cash for that day. I don't want my manager holding on to that cash. And I get to pocket that money. I make sure I pocket that money,
Sure. Is it better to go at the beginning of the month when payments are, are they more likely there, or are they always in there normally?
They're in there, dude.
Okay.
They're in there.
And same with hotels?
These dentists, these doctors, these attorneys, these entrepreneurs, more than ever, they're at the storage units. They're at the adult care facilities. They're at the hotels. Hotels, motels, 12:05. Because that's when people are done checking out. And that's when those boys and girls are counting the cash in the back room. And more than ever, people are paying with cash. They don't want to use their cards. They don't want their cards on file. A lot of people paying with cash. You got 100, 200 rooms. That's a lot of cash sitting in there.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we should probably stop, Darius, there.
Yep. All right, we're good. So
Hey, man, give them hell out there. We'll see you on the battlefield. Everybody, listen to me real quickly. Think about this for a moment. Think about those final moments when you take a look at William Wallace. And William Wallace is out there on the battlefield. You know, Mel Gibson among all those other characters. Look for me out there. I'll be out there with you. Okay? I'll be out on the battlefield with you. Have a great day. See you out there on the battlefield.
All right.
Bye,
Take
Rob.
care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Brett. See you later.
Bye, Keith Levadim in the house.
Thank you.
Take care,
Appreciate it.
everybody. Bye, Brenda. Have a great day. Bye, Shirley. Bye,
Have a good one,
Shereen.
everyone.
Yeah, you too. Have a great one.
Bye,
Kevin.
Brett.
Hey, Kevin. Kevin, check your spam.